Hey everybody, it's Kip with DT4EMS. I've got another hangout I'm going to do this morning, this time with Megan. I met her a couple of weeks ago at an instructor class and had an absolute blast. But I'm going to ask Megan to do a little brief introduction of herself and her experience, and then we'll kind of talk about how she even got involved with DT4EMS and stuff like that. So without further ado, here is Megan.
Hi everybody, my name is Megan Moerman. I am a Kent County paramedic. I have been a paramedic for about 11 years, getting ready to hit my year 12. Recently, over the past 2 years, I was promoted to an assistant supervisor. So I oversee about 10 people in our department. I also teach for our local college here in the paramedic program. So that's pretty much about it for my background in EMS. Didn't know anything about it before I started though, so.
There you go. Well, you know, when we first met, you were kind of telling me a pretty cool story about how you kind of even heard about DT4EMS as a whole. It had to do with like Bruce over at the college or something like that when he asked whether or not you were an instructor or something like that.
Yeah, so Bruce and I have a very dynamic relationship, a good relationship. He instructed me 13 years ago, and now I teach for him. So we have a great relationship. And he came to me and he sent me a text message and asked me, hey, are you a DT4EMS instructor? And I said, what is that? I had no idea. And he said, oh, well, if you don't know what it is, then you're probably not the instructor. That's probably right. So that got me thinking about it, wanting to know more about it. And I found it he gave me the link to your website, and I researched it. I researched every single one of your programs that you had. And he then offered me to take your class that he was going to be putting on and teaching for his Deltech students. So he offered me a seat to that, and that's how I got into it.
And, you know, some people will have seen that we brought Stinger on the other day, and you had
kicking and screaming to that. He had no interest in going. He felt that I was crazy. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. But, you know, he's like, I guess I'll come check it out. He did ask Bruce if he could audit the class. He didn't want to actually take it. And Bruce told him, nope, if you want to come, you got to take the class. So I had John Stinger sitting right next to me, and he was very put off. He was arms folded, sitting back, leaning back in the chair, swinging in the chair. He had no interest in being there at all. And I have to say, by the half of the first day, by 12 o'clock in the afternoon, by lunchtime, he was all forward, arms on the desk, into it. Him and I were already making plans on what we were going to do, how we needed to bring this program to our department, and how we were going to make that work. So it was really interesting. It was really neat to sit there next to him. I already was all into it because I had done all of the research all on my own. But
and it was pretty funny then. So did you have the same revelation on like day 3 of the instructor program where we turn around and we have a whole section that's dedicated to nothing but about the people that start off like this?
It was very, I mean, I experienced it. So for you to actually sit there and go through it and talk through it as your experience, and as you watch people do it, I watched it happen in the class myself, not even as an instructor. So it was really unique and neat.
Well, and it's really cool because, again, I mean, I didn't know until these were things that I started looking for over the years and realizing that, you know, our group of people, now whether that is, you know, the pre-hospital EMS, whether that's the EMT or firefighter paramedic on a scene, or specifically like ED nurses, you know, you have to agree that we all deal with the same kind of what people would call a combative patient, but they're all the same and they're wired the same. And so, you know, we expect people to be sitting here like this. And so that's why we do what we do. And then, you know, it's pretty great because then if you saw it and then you saw it ahead of time and then see it in the instructor class, you're like, hey, that he must know something about this stuff or something.
That's what he's talking about.
he must have this as a, you know, see, because it's not always about just some, you know, fancy ninjutsu technique, you know, that there's more to changing the culture of an EMT or a paramedic or emergency room nurse than, you know, just showing them some fancy techniques. You're going, hey, you just need to talk people down. Mm-hmm. And on that note, you had mentioned, as many have over the years, that you had been forced to take something like in a hospital setting before that was supposed to be showing you how to deal with combative patients. Is that true?
Yeah. I also, because, you know, EMS workers, we work 17 different jobs. I also have a part-time job in the local ER here, and they did require us to take what they called a self-defense class. And it was about a 3 to 4 hour class. That's it. It was very short, and it was dumb, for lack of a better term. We made jokes about it. It was basically nothing more than how to prevent you from getting injured even more. So it was, you weren't allowed to physically touch your patients. And they never once told you in this program that this is not acceptable behavior. It was, oh, this is what you should expect. You should expect to get beat. You should expect to get grabbed and dragged and whatever, what have you. And all they did was say, it's gonna happen and go with it until you can find help. So that I left there with nothing, and I thought it was absolutely insane. And then I met Bruce Neatbon up and got with him and had your class, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a different program. And it truly is.
So well, and I thank you for that. I really do, because I was really glad that you were there, but my brain just jumped to something. So would you agree, when you think about it, that we say you should never really have to defend yourself against a patient? That's true, isn't it?
Yes, it's very true. You should never have to defend yourself against a patient.
So it's like when people wrestle, and this is the problem with people just doing knee-jerk reactions with trying to think everybody should be teaching self-defense to healthcare, or anybody can do it, is that, you know, they've got the CMS on one side going, you never attack a patient. We go, we agree. You know, we're not going to be slapping, punching, kicking, kneeing patients ever. We agree. But then what they don't do is differentiate. Then you've got the other side with OSHA saying, look, you know, you got violence in the workplace in healthcare and you're not listening, you know, and so you've got CMS on one side and you got OSHA on the other and a hospital in the middle going, well, we've trained our people. Well, actually you haven't, you know, and it's like, that's the part that sometimes is very difficult to get people to, you know, to understand. But you yourself saw that they were two completely different programs, right?
Very completely. Yours is all about changing the culture and recognizing that this is not acceptable in our field or in any field for that matter, and that we shouldn't be treated that way, and that we should find a way to help deal with it and not get ourselves in trouble and make it look like we are defending ourselves, not attacking other people, because that's not what we're doing. Whereas the other program that I had was, it's going to happen, just get used to it and just kind of go with it. Yeah. And try to keep yourself as safe as you possibly can. And that made, I mean, that no wonder there's the culture that it's okay and it happens. They just taught that.
Yeah, and people are afraid they're going to lose their job. You know, if you got people afraid that they're going to lose their job if they do something, and it's like, no, wait a minute. No other profession on the planet would tell you that it's okay if someone was hired drunk and they attacked you on the job. And, you know, it's like your state even has laws against attacking nurses, paramedics, and EMTs on the job. And yet you're trying to tell them on the inside that, oh, you can't do anything. What we're saying is, look, that's the issue. And shifting gears for just a second, how were you when you found out you had to take the first 2 days again in order to take the train the trainer class? I know you guys are busy, but were you kind of like, man, we just had it, and you know, or were you kind of like, okay, I'm ready to do the first 2 days again? What'd you think?
At first, yeah, it was kind of like, man, we did just do this. We just did it in December, so it was just a few months later, and all of the stuff was still pretty fresh in the brain. But once we got in there and got there the first day, I was really glad that we did take it all over again. It was a great refresher. We picked up on a little bit, like little tidbits here and there that maybe we didn't get the first time. And then on top of it, we got a whole different group. It was a whole different group of people. So a whole different group dynamic interaction. And it was with you who actually created the course versus somebody who's teaching for you.
Yeah.
I think it really truly added to it.
Well, and I'm glad. It's like, you know, because it's always awesome the more that, and over the years, I mean, of course, we're modifying how we were doing things. And I've always said that each class is the, you know, the guinea pig for the one that follows, because we're always trying to get better. And we always have, you know, whether it be new dynamics or there's new information, like even the stuff that's going on in the media right now with some mistakes that people have made in the use of force, not our people, but, and we're going, look, we could have helped you with this a long time ago, but you weren't listening. So, but when you went through the instructor class, would you agree that we require a lot of you, first of all?
Oh, yes. I was very surprised. In fact, I said to Tinger, I've got instructorships in 6 or 7 different areas of EMS at this point, and not any of them were as intricate as your instructorship course was. Having to prepare our own lecture and present the material to the guy that founded it, that's a little stressful. And then you don't have time to prepare necessarily because it's given to you the night before, and then the next day, hey, you're presenting. And you gave a lot of instructing tips, a lot of, EMS instructor courses, they don't do that. There's no, it's just, here's the material, go teach it and you're done. So it was very different.
Well, and that's what I want. And actually, some of the things that have gotten better over the years before, you know, in the instructor classes, we used to really stress you. You know, you would have one presentation on this day, and then the next day you'd have another presentation. One of the things that we were doing was forcing you to, it's kind of like some of the same stuff that we do in the initial class. We go, look, if you practice, you know, you don't have to think about something. It just becomes natural, and you're able to pay attention to other stuff and make your skill more fun, or more practical on the street as far as the self-defense side. So as a trainer, we're like, look, see how crappy this is if you didn't prepare, and how your race is all involved, and you're having to, you know what I mean? You get froze because, you know, we did a pin in your class too, didn't we? Somebody tapping a pin and they don't catch it.
Yeah, so it was sitting 2 seats down from me, and Stinger had to get up and leave the room because he couldn't take it. Yes.
It's little things like that that people don't, you know, because would you agree that we are a group of people, that's EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, ED nurses specifically, that you can't tell us anything, you know, you have to reveal it to us.
Yep.
And
yep,
so
we all know it all already. You have to make us believe it.
That's right. And we can say stuff like, you know, hey, you're going to get tunnel vision and auditory exclusion under stress. You know, this will happen and you'll totally miss it. And people go, yep, you know, that might happen to somebody else, but it doesn't happen to me until we do it and prove it to everybody, right?
Yep, and your course does. I mean, it really does bring out all of those little details and nuances, and makes you sit there and the entire class, even through the first 2-day course, taking that over again, as well as the instructor portion. You sit there and you go, aha. I mean, you have those aha moments constantly throughout the entire program, whether it's just the 2-day course or whether it's the full 5-day instructor course. It's just constant throughout the whole program.
Well, now as a female, did you feel that the physical skills that were self-defense skills that we taught in the program, did you feel that those self-defense skills that we taught are practical?
Yes, very much so. I went into it the first time with Bruce Nippon and kind of looked through the little booklet that you hand out, and in the booklet it shows you some of the moves and some of the tactics that are used. And I sat there going, yeah, right, okay. I'm not a martial arts person. I don't do karate. I don't have any of that in my background. And they are all very easy to complete, do, perform, and you don't have to think about them, especially with the repetition and the practice and getting used to doing them. Anybody can do them.
So because when we do like the choke escapes and stuff like that, but of course, you know, we've talked about this already, but all the person has to do is to go to the website and to look back at all the assaults that have been in the news that have had nurses, paramedics, EMTs choked from the front, whether it be one hand or two hand chokes from the front. Would you agree that once we start choking, we really start squeezing?
Yes, we do. Yep.
Because we want you to believe it, right? Right.
You have to practice like it's actually happening, because that's how you develop your pattern and recognition of it and don't have to think about it.
And then what about, you know, like if you've been on the ground and somebody's, you know, choking you on the ground, stuff like that, were you able to escape those things?
I was able to escape those things, and I had the pleasure of throwing my captain off of me. It was one of the highlights of my career. People can say they've done that and they've thrown their boss across the mat.
And then the standing choke from behind, what about that one?
That was just as easy to get out of. In fact, I was able, I think the biggest guy in our class was he was over 6 foot tall easily. And I was able to get out of his choke grab from behind with no problem.
So it's, you know, so wait a minute. So the intellectual stuff made sense to you. And you've got, again, you know, 12 years, you're in your 12th year of experience. And it's like, so the stuff that we presented that had to do with whether it be documentation or reading a scene or, you know, the tactics, right? So that the tactics that we taught made sense to you as a female medic.
Yes, very much so. And honestly, the verbal portion of it, the validating, explaining, and requesting help, that's probably the biggest take home for me, because it really does de-escalate situations and get you away from those other ones potentially. Obviously, they can still happen and they might still happen, but we have now those skills to get out of them. But the verbal that's excellent. In fact, I just used it last night. I mean, I've used it a lot since your class, since I took it with Bruce. And it's wonderful. It truly is.
So you find the verbal skills formulas works?
Oh, yes. I was using it with my son long before you taught it. So.
Yeah, that was the thing I was about to bring up, that you said that there was we might as well give them props, because I have no idea. I'd never even heard of the piece that you're talking about. I'd just taken a couple of different ones that I had done from law enforcement, and then some of the stuff that they had told us from day one in EMT school about asking someone to hand you a spine board or do this or that, because the public, it's kind of like, why did we ask the father to go boil water? You know what I mean? We give them something to do. And so it was but you brought up that there was
Yeah, the book was called The Happiest Toddler on the Block. It's written by a physician. I cannot remember his name, but I read his book, and he called it, instead of the verbal skills or calling it anything else, he called it the fast food method. So it was, validated, and you explained and you requested help, just in different terms for them. But yeah, and it really worked with my toddler. I've been using it for years. So when I heard your version, I was like, hey, I've done that before, and I've seen that before. How about that? You can use it on adults. This is great.
And truthfully, it's like I mentioned in our program during the instructor portion, one of the reasons why we try to have as much fun as we do with adults is because when I went through DARE school to be a DARE officer, I found, they were like, look, hey, play with the kids. If you play with kids, it takes the cop stuff out of it. Go play kickball every once in a while, or basketball, this or that. And so I started applying some of those same things that I learned in DARE school, whether it be the management walking around. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, that works for adults the same as it does for kids. Handles pencil tapping and talking and sleeping or whatever. Why not try some of the fun stuff? And so then that's why we add the humor and the with the interaction and stuff like that, because then the more I found that if we could have everybody go, look, well, this isn't about each individual person, but if I took the individual person and made them go, how do I make my partner have fun? How do I make it better for my partner? Then all of a sudden, if everybody's trying to make me have a good time and we're trying to make each other have a good time, then all of a sudden we learn faster. We all leave going, man, this was really something. Although we worked hard, you know what I mean? We're moving, constantly throughout the entire thing. I mean, whether it be mentally bashing you or physically bashing you, and then at the end, it's like, holy crap, it's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we had such great interaction. I had great interaction in Bruce's class as well, but that was just the 2-day class. But then yours was the 5-day instructorship course. And John and I showed up, and we didn't know anybody there. We didn't know you. We didn't know the other people in the class. And we were kind of the outsiders, because we were walking into their domain, and they had opened their door to us when I requested a seat in the class. And we left the first day going, oh my, like, we don't know anybody. What are we going to do? And then by day 5, we've exchanged information with every single one of them. We've got invites to come back and see each other. We're keeping in touch. So it just formulated more friendships.
And we have definitely seen that across the country. So I was really happy that happened. It's no longer, I guess now I would be surprised if it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Because we've seen it so much, and there's a camaraderie that builds up, and there's already an EMS family. But then you can have again, EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, nurses, and then even law enforcement whenever they take the class, and it still becomes this group, because again, we kind of require stuff from you that still isn't mainstream. And so you're trying to go back now and change the culture and preach a message. And then do you remember much of your elevator pitch, or did you want to share any of that, or how that came about?
Well, you required us to do the elevator pitch before we did our presentation. You said take 5 minutes and explain, what you would tell somebody if you met them in the elevator, why you were gone for so long. So mine was pretty much what my introduction was, just a little bit about myself, how long I've been in the system, my experience with Deltec, Bruce Nippon reaching out to me, asking me about if I had the DT4 EMS instructorship, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And then I took the hospital class and how awful it was, and that was after Bruce had asked me about the instructorship. And then right after that was when Bruce said, hey, I'm putting on the class. Why don't you come take the class and come sit in, and see what it's all about, since you're interested in it. And that was when I had that big aha moment. And like I said, though, I had already done the research on your website, so I was already all for it. Especially being a female in the profession, we don't have the advantage that a big guy does. I don't But then again, as I've learned from your class, it's not about being bigger and stronger or anything like that. So it was definitely an ego booster as well as just eye-opening in general, taking the class.
And then, well, and it's interesting that you even bring up the thing about the big, big strong guy or this or that, and it's because it's really interesting. Would you agree that our class gives a true definition of what self-defense really is?
Yes, 100%, because it's literally all about you escaping that encounter. It's not about you beating the other person to a bloody pulp and getting you out of it that way. We're not trying to hurt the other person by any means. It's just to get yourself, just to create distance, enough distance that you can back out. So that to me is completely self-defense.
Because again, that so many, thanks to whether it be social media, television, YouTube, movies, whatever, people believe that self-defense means I kill, maim, destroy, and it's kill, maim, destroy might sound good, but look what happens if people really attempt to apply that. Human conflict is dynamic. And, I train 4 days a week to find that, I'm definitely not always the biggest, strongest, toughest guy in the room. And so learning to defend, which is by myself that moment in time, is what, helps me. And so that's really kind of like the big thing. I think everybody is so used to going, well, this is A, this is B, and there must be C. Well, what happens if the bad guy starts you at A, but then just refuses to do B? So now you're stuck. We did that R again. We're like, now what? Well, would you agree that our class gives people the critical thinking skills for them to consistently change? Meaning,
very much so. You can use all of the skills in so many different dynamic situations that you can easily apply it to at any point to any situation. Whether it's the little old mama and pop that has dementia that is just grabbing because they don't know what they're doing, but they are hurt when they grab you. They can hurt you. Or if it is the patient that's not a patient anymore, who's now an attacker, who's actually grabbing you to hurt you. It's the same exact tactic on one side or the other, because it does not hurt the other person. It gets you away. Right.
But you hit the high point earlier. The trick was not even to be there to begin with.
Right.
We keep bringing that up. We're showing that, throughout, and people that haven't really witnessed it don't get it, because they'll think, well, a double tap, that's got to be the side step. That's got to be kind of stupid. That doesn't make any sense. That would be ridiculous. And, my ninja skills that I took at my Krav my Taekwondo which one time said that I have to eye poke and knee strike and, bite the jugular and, karate it and spit it out on the ground. Then they'll leave me alone or let me go, break the wrist, squeeze the leg. But, not ridiculing any other system. The point is that every system is great when it's used for what it was created. And, again, I'm a student of multiple martial arts, and hopefully, like I said, we've got Stinger motivated now. So maybe he's going to do a little BJJ, and then maybe rope a few of you others into, getting out there and training pretty regularly, because then you're really going to get bit with a bug to train. But you're just coming off of a 48, so I'm not going to keep you.
Yeah, VMS.
Yes, that's only one of your 17 jobs.
That's right, only one. I'm actually off from the rest of them for a couple of days. I actually have 4 days off. I'm very excited.
Yeah,
that's
like unbelievable. Well, listen, I really, really appreciate it, Megan. I thank you so much for taking your time, especially after coming off of 48, to share your experiences not only with me but with the public that may be watching, and doing some of the same thing, because I truly believe or I guess I should ask it, would you agree that if people really took the time to investigate DT4EMS's Eve, like you did, whether it be through the website, and then actually, look at it with an open mind and start looking and seeing what other people have had to say, whether they be, artists or boxers or supervisors or cops or prior military, all these people that have trained with us that are saying things just like you are today. Would you agree if those people took the time to research it, they would at least probably come and take the class?
Oh, without a doubt. I don't know how they would not want to. One of the things, like I said, back in December when John and I had taken the first class, we were already trying to figure out how to bring this program back to our department. And now that him and I searched high and low for the instructor class to make it feasible and doable for us, because we are here in Delaware. And finally I did find it through, up at Good Fellowship, and I contacted them, and I reached out to them, asked them if I could attend, got 2 seats, and here we are now with our instructorships, and we cannot wait to push this out to our entire department. And we've already gotten up with a lot of our BLS community and have explained to them what we did, where we did it, and why. And they are all jumping on board as well. And they can't wait to have us teach the class as well. So I'm hoping that it spreads like a wildfire throughout Delaware, because it really does need to. Me too. And I really appreciate your guys' help with that, because it's, you know, I never get tired of meeting the people, you know what I mean? And that's you know, and Stinger and you know, and the other guys that we met at, you know, Good Fellowship. It's the people. And then when you guys take the message forward, it's like it vindicates me, because, you know, not everybody knows, but you know, for the first 10 years I was doing this, I was ridiculed by everybody, man, in law enforcement and in EMS and in hospitals, and because you know, they were like, oh, it's part of the job, or, you know, they don't need that, or, you know, whatever it might be. But there would be the most ridiculous things, and you couldn't get people to, you know, investigate the truth, and you could lay it out there in front of them, and they still, you know, don't listen. So they don't know me, you know, now. I mean, out in the public, they just don't know me, but they know you. And so when you're going, look, guys, this is something you should look into, and this is why, then they go, oh, okay, well, if Megan thinks it's all right, then maybe we'll at least, you know, check it out. But anyway, well, I thank you so much. And thank you.
I appreciate it. If you get a chance, again, continue, share stuff on social media, tell everybody about it. But you're going to make believers out of people that come in the class and go, wait a minute, she can do the physical skills, or she can do this, you know, and they're going to, especially if you dump Stinger on his head while, you know, you're in there. That's my plan. I can't wait for the first class just so I can do that. Yeah, I'm sure I'll be getting a message from her after, hey, what's up with that? Probably. I thank you so much, Megan. You have a good 4 days off, and I will. Enjoy your holiday weekend. If you need anything, give me a holler. I will. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.